I'll tell you a funny story. It was February 2020. I started the podcast. I remember in December, I was talking to a mate about this show that I was watching that was on. It was about American sports. It's still going. It's called The Herd, and it's run by a American guy named Colin Cowherd, and he just talks all American sport. Really good show if you're interested in your American sports. And I remember what he used to do is he used to have his podcast, and then it'd be on YouTube. But then he'd also just take, similar to what I do, what you do, what everyone does now. He'd put out little like 5-minute clips of his content on Facebook. And I remember when I used to drive to work, so it'd be about a 15-minute drive or whatever, I'd go to his Facebook page every day and I'd have the 3 videos just playing through as I was driving, right? And I remember I was showing a mate and he said, "Oh, do you listen to the podcast?" And this was 3 months before I started my own. And I legitimately said to him, "What's a podcast?" I had no idea what it was. I'd never heard of them, had no idea. And he said, "You can listen to this whole fucking 2-hour show instead of listening to 3 5-minute segments. You can listen to the whole thing." And he showed me the app that was already on my phone, obviously. Never seen it, never heard of it, nothing. So it was crazy that then as soon as I found them, I just became obsessed with them and thought, this is the best thing ever, podcasting. This is unreal. I'd love to get into this. Just didn't have time because I was teaching and everything. And then made the decision at the end of 2019 that I was going to go back to teaching, but only part-time. And I was going to go and buy all the podcast gear and have a real crack at it because I saw that as my avenue to be able to get revenue off the back of the podcast, off the back of Rugby League Guru. And I remember I went to a course that was like podcasting 101. It cost me about $1,000 and I didn't have much money then. And I remember thinking like, fuck, this is a lot of money. Could I just find this out on YouTube? Could I just Google all this sort of stuff? And in hindsight, I probably could have, but going to that course was the best thing I've ever done. It was unreal. I just sat there with, have you had anything to do with the Rabbitohs Radio Boys?
Yeah, I have.
Their own podcast. So like Mavo, Darren, Chaps, it just happened to be them and me in this group. And it was unreal. We sat there the whole day. We went through all the basics, everything you could possibly think of. We came up with all these content ideas, and I remember it was probably the best bit of advice I've ever been given. And he's a genius, the guy that runs it. He's probably actually mates with your old man, I reckon. They would have grown up in the same sort of area. But I remember he said to me, "Oh, you need to be super organized because you need to have a different guest on every single week because you didn't play first grade, so no one's going to want to listen to what you say." And I remember sort of going, "Okay, we'll see about that. We'll see." And that's crazy that now I haven't had a guest on in 2 years, and I still remember him saying that and me thinking, yeah. Okay. And like, I was obviously sitting in a room of former first graders as well that were starting their own podcast, and they all sort of went, yeah, like, blah, blah, blah. So it's unreal to look back on that now and sort of realize that. And I would say to all content creators as well, just because you haven't played footy or rep footy or whatever the fuck it might be, if you're passionate about it, you can make it work.